Welcome to This Explainer. Today we're unpacking an absolutely fascinating story from the series Millionaires I've Met. This is episode number 1, and it's all about a lottery winner who pretended to be completely broke for 20 years. Seriously, this is a real-life case study of what you might call the ultimate Trojan horse of personal finance. We're talking about a secret millionaire who won the jackpot and then successfully hid her wealth from her neighbors, her coworkers, and even her own family for 2 full decades. It's just an incredible look at the psychology of money, and honestly, the story we're going to walk through today will completely change how you view your own finances. So let's get right into it.
Okay, so let's set the scene here. Imagine you're standing in line at this rundown community bank. You know the type. The coffee machine in the corner looks like it hasn't worked since the 90s. And standing right ahead of you is a woman in her early 60s. Everything about her just projects this life lived very carefully on very little. She's wearing sensible shoes, a coat that kind of looks like a rummage sale find, and the strap of her handbag is literally held together with a safety pin. Plus, you just saw her pay for the parking meter outside using exact change. She looks like someone who's just barely getting by, probably just trying to deposit a tiny check to cover the month's groceries. But then she slides her deposit slip across the teller's counter, and the amount written on that piece of paper? $300,000. Yeah, and you want to know the craziest part? The teller didn't even blink, because this was actually one of her smaller deposits for the year. This unassuming, quiet woman was sitting on a massive fortune, just hiding in plain sight. So how exactly did she get here? Well, 20 years prior, she was a middle-income school district employee. You know, she occasionally bought a lottery ticket just to daydream a bit, and one weekend, that daydream actually came true. She won a $3 million jackpot. But instead of screaming or jumping up and down or immediately calling everyone she knew, she just sat at her kitchen table. She stared at the ticket, and she asked herself a really pivotal question. Who has to know about this? And she decided the answer was nobody. Not yet. Maybe not ever. She actually slept on this massive secret for 2 full days before claiming a single dime. And during those 2 sleepless nights, she started researching what actually happens to sudden millionaires. Where she discovered was a genuinely terrifying pattern. The stats are just grim. Roughly 1 in 3 lottery winners ends up in bankruptcy court. And it doesn't take decades. It usually happens within just 3 to 5 years. And ironically, people who win the larger prizes often go broke at even higher rates. Looking at all this evidence, she had this light bulb moment. She realized this money wasn't some shiny prize to show off. It was the secret she desperately needed to protect. Because here is where most winners make their first fatal mistake. That $3 million jackpot is a total illusion. The moment she opted for the lump sum payment instead of the 30-year payout, that immediately knocked the value down to about 60%. Then, of course, come the taxes. The lottery automatically withholds 24% for federal taxes right off the bat. But a prize this huge shoves you straight into the top 37% tax bracket. So she's going to owe hundreds of thousands more come tax time. You factor in state taxes, and the honest truth is that her $3 million headline was actually about $1.8 million in real life. Unlike most winners who budget for the big headline number and then go completely broke paying the tax bill, she absolutely refused to base her life on a number that didn't exist. Armed with her very real $1.8 million, she pulled off what I like to call the boring magic trick. Instead of upgrading her lifestyle to match her new bank account, she made it look exactly the same as the day before she won. She kept her job, and not for the paycheck. She kept it because a job is the ultimate cover story. Think about it. A person who packs a lunch and commutes every day is someone nobody suspects of being a secret millionaire. She stayed in the exact same house, wore the same clothes, and drove her old car until it literally died. And even then, she just replaced it with a used, sensible one. She completely eliminated any curiosity from her neighbors by changing absolutely nothing. She paired this whole lifestyle illusion with an incredibly smart yet super simple cash strategy. She decided to keep a buffer of a couple of years of living expenses entirely in cash. But instead of leaving it in a standard bank savings account, you know, the ones earning a microscopic 0.38%, she parked it in a federally insured high-yield savings account, earning around 4%. On a cash buffer of her size, this gap alone meant she was generating tens of thousands of dollars a year in interest. And that money arrived like clockwork for doing absolutely nothing other than keeping her cash in a smarter place. But that cash, that was just the buffer. The real bulk of her $1.8 million went into low-cost, diversified index funds. She didn't chase any exotic real estate schemes, and she didn't pick individual stocks that you have to stress over and check on every single day. She just bought a tiny piece of the entire market, which has historically returned an average of around 7% a year over the long run. She set it up, she stopped looking at it, and she completely refused to touch it. She understood that fast money vanishes, so she deliberately built a slow, highly intentional growth machine. Now, she was human, of course, and her discipline actually did crack exactly one time. A few years in, the weight of carrying this massive secret just got too heavy, and she confided in one single trusted person. Almost instantly, everything she had feared began to happen. First came the small, gentle requests for loans. Then came the larger ones. A distant cousin suddenly appeared out of nowhere with a business pitch. A total stranger even called her home, trying to rope her into this fabricated investment scam. Now, she escaped untouched, but it proved to her beyond a shadow of a doubt that silence was her only true defense against the expectations of other people. So she rebuilt her wall, and she didn't breathe a word to anyone else for 20 years. The crucial point here becomes crystal clear when you compare her to a different winner, someone who actually won a smaller prize, but did the exact opposite. He told everyone, and he didn't lose his money in one dramatic movie-style night at a Vegas casino. No, he lost it through 1,000 tiny yeses. A giant mortgage, a shiny new truck he didn't need, a second truck for a hobby, funding his friend's startup ideas. Within 6 years, he was completely bankrupt. And honestly, the cruelest part, because he built his lifestyle so loudly, everyone got a front row seat to watch him fail. Our secret winner completely avoided all that public humiliation simply by refusing to inflate her lifestyle. So what actually happens when you combine that strict silence with a boring, slow-growth investment strategy over a really long period of time? Well, the power of compounding at an average of 7% means that invested money roughly doubles every 10 years. After 20 years of reinvesting every single dividend and never touching the principal, her initial $1.8 million quietly grew into nearly $7 million. And hey, remember that cash buffer we talked about? The interest from that alone was throwing off over $70,000 a year, which was actually way more than she ever made at her actual day job. That entirely supplemented her ordinary life. The real secret to achieving that staggering growth was mastering how she viewed everyday spending. Here's a great example. During her first year as a secret millionaire, she was severely tempted to buy a modest boat, just something for the weekends. The sticker price on that boat was $200,000, and obviously she could easily afford it with her $1.8 million sitting right there in the bank. But she didn't just look at the sticker price. She ran the math. She knew that leaving that $200,000 invested at 7% over the next 20 years meant it would eventually grow into $750,000. That was the real price of the boat to her. It wasn't $200,000, it was $750,000 in lost future wealth. And the second she saw that number, she walked right away. What she was applying here is an absolutely crucial concept called opportunity cost. It's basically the hidden second price tag attached to every single dollar you spend, because that same dollar is also everything it might have become if you had just left it alone to compound in the dark. The flashy winners who go broke, they never run this calculation, but she ran it on literally everything. She intentionally chose her comforts with her eyes wide open to their true compounded cost. Now, I know what you might be thinking. I'm never going to win the lottery, so why does this whole story matter to me? Well, it matters because the exact same forces are at play every single time unexpected money lands in your hands. Think about an annual raise at work, a nice holiday bonus, a chunky tax refund, or even an unexpected inheritance. These are all just mini lottery tickets, and each one drops you at the exact same fork in the road. You can let the money inflate your lifestyle so everyone sees it, or you can quietly funnel it into an investment account where it just compounds out of sight. And for her, that incredible discipline essentially paid off in the most beautiful way. After 20 years of near total silence, when her wealth was completely unshakable, she finally started using it on her own terms. She quietly paid for her grandchild's entire education in full, making sure they entered adult life completely without the burden of debt. She supported a few causes she really loved, and she did all of it without any big announcements on social media, without any brass plaques on a wall. She proved that true wealth is almost always the quietest person in the room. It's just such an incredible framework for thinking about money, about patience, and about managing the expectations of others. Her whole story basically comes down to refusing to be impressed by your own money.
So as we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with one final provocative question to reflect on when you think about your own lifestyle inflation. If you won the lottery tomorrow, or even if you just got a massive raise at work, do you truly believe you could stay as silent as she did? Or would the whole world know by dinner time? Definitely something to think about. Thanks so much for joining me for this explainer, and keep making those smart, quiet decisions.